So we're doing something a little different today. We are gonna do like phone because apparently all my other cameras failed to charge. My fishbowl camera may have died on me. I have to figure that out. This is why last week I was ranting about ATVers. They chew this is actually fairly mild, but they chew up the trail, and this helps nothing. They don't really do anything to help other people that are out here making use of the trail. So if you're wondering what I was talking about, that's why. I guess we're doing things this way, so it's going to be a bunch of phone clips today, so we'll figure that out as we go. Changing plans, and I'll go home, and because all the other cameras I normally have are all freaking low battery because I was relying on the other one, so live and learn. Anyway, let's get going, and this is where we're starting out today. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do as best I can with the phone camera because it's really all I have that's charged or working today. And I'm playing back the sequence of last night when I charged the one that apparently is not working the way I had hoped it would. And that basically means that there's a very good chance, I'm trying to remember how long I've had it, because there's a very good chance that it's effectively died on me, which leaves me with the police body cam, which I would like a whole lot better if I could mount that to a selfie stick, but I can't. The fishbowl camera had that capacity, and then I have the gimbal camera, which has 90 minutes on it, but is not, it still has the 90-minute limit, so you're kind of limited there too. So I'm going to get home and I'll take it into the proverbial workshop and see what I can do with it. But unfortunately, that means that the fishbowl cameras now, or the fisheye cameras now, what I can't freaking trust. So for doing future things with this that kind of sucks. So we're doing the phone today, which this video is being made and presented as is, and I will do my best to keep the fingers out of the camera, but easier said than done. And probably just as well I didn't get to Vermont. I was kind of half tempted to go this week. I am going up there next week, but if all my cameras are going to shit the bed this week, then probably just as well that I don't. And so let's see what else is going on. In Bigfootery, person I'm not particularly fond of down Oklahoma way is seemingly doing his best to flesh out his little hostile takeover of the Squatchopedia thing, which was started by Brian Brown, and of course the individual I'm talking about is renowned for copying other people's work, if not outrightly stealing it, and then trying to act like a Boy Scout shithead that he is. This is a person, just so I may sound hostile here, but allow me to, God damn it. I guess we're doing this righty. I may come across sounding hostile towards this person, but this person is not someone that I've had pleasant dealings with, and I have on my own site, which I do neglect, granted, but I have copy protections on there because this bastard has stolen like whole websites from people and is little better than a thief. He does have a lengthy criminal history, but we'll leave that alone because that's not the point. Today, he is cataloging, or well, this last week or so is cataloging well-known hoaxes. There is you fucking, all right, do that. Well-known stump that has been presented, analyzed, looked over from every conceivable angle. Night vision, not night vision, and it's a stump. But every now and then somebody brings it out to trot out the horse again. it's probably as notorious, if not more, of the likes of the Jacobs bear, which is a bear. Bleep you if you don't like it. The Ketchum study and all these things that continually get recycled to try to suck in a new batch of noobs. And hopefully the noobs over time get freaking more educated and see it for what it is. God damn it. The reason I don't like using the phone is you're like more focused on how to hold it because the damn camera's in a weird position. And you know, so here's the thing. I have my gimbal in the backpack too, but I probably haven't freaking charged that either. So what you see is what you get. I'm trying to hold it as best I can, and today is just going to be a matter of the best effort we can do. As every single fucking stick wants to get in my way. And yes, I'm irritated because when you have multiple freaking failures, it just isn't good. So you just cannot keep your fucking finger out of that picture when you do it, Lefty. Anyway, we're going to do a couple of short bursts today because the day's just off to a crappy start, and enjoy the pretty scenery as I rant about my petty problems today or whatever, and see whatever else comes to mind. But so far, that is I saw him bringing that up again, and it's more from the context weirdly in his defense at the same time. The fact that he is cataloging it as a well-known hoax from all times. Not that he ever had any involvement in the Bullet Maker hoax, which ran for 5 years, or the Daisy in a clamshell nonsense from 2013, which he was the reporter of. You know, play by play, move by move, and decided that he then was going to declare he had broken the hoax. Like, no, you reported that, my friend. And you're not my friend. You're a fucking prick of epic proportions, Darren. But rather than make this a personal attack, I saw that, and that's the one thing I can really think of that's Bigfoot-related stuff. So, lest I turn this into a grumpy fest because I am burping and on this camera. At least I remember to charge my phone. At least there's that. I'm going to take a segment break while I take a look around in here, and incidentally, let's do that too, because it's where I left the house today. It's like 64 degrees. It's lovely out. You get up here and it's cloudy, and you're batting like 44 degrees. It's not cold. It's not warm. But it's not as buggy as I thought it might be too. So because tomorrow's supposedly going to be warmer still, so it's going to be pretty warm today, just not here. And I'm going to take a look and see if there's anything else to discuss. Otherwise, I might just keep this one short today because of my limited resources and recording stuff. And I'm going to go home and charge bloody bleeping everything because apparently I haven't done that in a while. So, live and learn. We'll be back. Okay, we're back. Pardon the noise from the waterfall. I kind of ill-timed that. Get out of my way, asshole. Still grumpy. We're going to cover one subject today, and then we'll see where we are. So it seems that Connecticut is considering a bear hunting season, and I have some mixed feelings about that, because on the one hand, I don't debate the need to control the population when it gets past a certain point and you're in a densely populated human area, but this is a classic example of a small New England state overdeveloping the middle part of the state, and this is why, if there is a conflict with black bears, that's why that is. You know, the pseudo-hippie argument is we moved in on them, and we did. And bears, like coyotes and certain other types of animals that are more adaptive than others, they're going to adjust. And suddenly it's a lot easier to raid your garbage cans for pizza crust and things like this than go and do nuts and berries like they normally do. But that is not the issue I have, or the potential problem that I have with bear hunting. It's not the what, it's the how. And I know of two ways people bear hunt. One is you basically use the dogs to run them up a tree and then shoot them, which has no sporting aspect whatsoever. And if you do it that way, I'm sorry, fuck you, you're a coward. There's no sport. It's not even a sporting chance for the bear. So I stand by what I just said. If you are a bear hunter and I offend you, good. Maybe it gives you time to pause and think. I hunt myself, but that is the very epitome of, to me, slop hunting, and I'm not on board with your need to do it that way. I'm also pissed about my camera, so I'm probably being a little bit more grumpy today than I normally am. It's really awkward holding the fucking phone to do this and walking through various variable. This isn't the worst terrain, but it's kind of a pain to do it with the phone because you got to keep attention to both. The other way is with a bait station and you're luring them in, and there's absolutely no sport in that either. It's like you're rigging the odds against them, and that's just not sporting. By contrast, I grouse hunt, and you go out and you stalk. You stalk your prey. That's hunting, to me anyway. And it just seems to, it's like, it's kind of the same thing as like if you have somebody who has a deer that came around that they've been feeding for 3 years, and then some hunter sees it in your backyard and shoots it. That guy right there, to atone for his freaking sin and basically just being stupid, ought to take the same gun, point it towards his foot, and pull the trigger there too. Sorry, not sorry, said what I said. And I know there's guidelines online about wishing harm on others, but if you're that kind of freaking special breed of shithead, oh well, suck it. Suck it. That's how it is. That's how I feel about it. I don't apologize. I'm not the most subtle person in the world, and no one will ever accuse me of that. As much as I, to this day, will hold to the long-term history, and this is the unfortunate thing for some people in the Bigfoot community, is when you've been around for a couple of decades and you know what people have done, and then they try to go and reinvent themselves. I mean, I'm all for redemption with most people if that's what they're doing on an honest basis and they own their past. I mean, I'll be the first person to tell you I'm not immune from having a disagreement, shall we say, diplomatically with some people in the community more than once, but it's not really that hard to do. There's been more than a few people that cling to a very wackadoodle sense of the subject. Matthew Johnson being probably the chief offender, patron saint of wackadoodles. And you notice I don't really sugarcoat what I say about the guy because he's out of his effing mind. And if he's sucking people into what it basically does amount to something pretty damn close to a cult if it isn't actually qualifying as a cult. And if you're a supporter and you're listening to this and you're going to defend him and invite me to read his books or watch his videos, shut the fuck up. I'm not wasting my time on that. Because I have this little friend who we call Reality, and I don't make things up after having had a traumatic head wound. I know Matt's history. He had a traumatic head wound, and it probably has affected his sense of sanity. Not enough to make him non-functioning in some ways in the community that he lives in, but enough that if you are somebody who's a vulnerable person listening to Bigfoot-related theories and things, he'd be one for me to avoid. But, again, if you're somebody who's been around and you had your dark times, I'm not going to get into a whole thing. I mean, I could honestly write a book, a tell-all of Bigfooting dirt, but that's not really what the subject's about, is it? Although it's amusing every now and then to make note of that, because there was a time if you want to back up about 10 years when I was toying with the idea of writing a book that had literally nothing to do with the individual in question, which I find really funny. He made a blanket threat to sue me if I did. Which kind of raises the question, what are you so afraid would be made public that you're so adamant you would sue over something that, honestly, should the book have been written back then and published, it would have had nothing to do with this guy. Literally nothing to do with him. And he went away for a while, but like all people that are not as they seem and consumed by their own egos, he came back and he has his little podcast again, and good for him, you know, whatever. Good luck with it. I don't care. A former mutual friend actually invited me, probably not with his approval, if I wanted to be a guest on this podcast. I thought the concept was pretty funny. I'll not be setting myself up for such an interview. I don't do interviews as a rule anyway. Not that I'm anyone so famous that I should. But if I were to do one, it ain't going to be with him. Because here we have an example of someone who, yeah, I'm sure this is not going to make him happy to hear, but here it is, buddy. You're not what you package yourself up to be, and you're a classic example of someone like that. And no respect given, really, because I've seen you basically, the fingers are going to be in the way if I switch hands, because I have to do that to shift balance out here, so deal with it. I'm sorry. This guy has made a conscious choice in the past to basically screw over his best friend, somebody that almost could be considered his sidekick at the time, and then he goes away, he comes back, and he lures him back in. And I don't know how that happened. I don't know what was said, so I don't... Maybe there is a redemption story here, but knowing what I know of the guy, I think there's just a period of time where if you had a state of relations with somebody that just did not work out, why go back and revisit if it's just going to play out the same way again? I don't get that. And there's, unfortunately, I said this before, I'll say it again just to make the point. Way, way, way back in the heyday of internet-related communities, I always thought the martial arts community, notably the karate community, was full of egomaniacs and hyper competition levels that were way, way too unhealthy to really have a positive impact on somebody's life. Which is basically, if you ask me, the corruption of martial arts, just to completely tangent into a different subject, by the sport-related martial arts of the time, the Taekwondo guys, the sport karate guys. And 90% of these idiots are basically freaking point fighting frauds that are a joke, but that's me. As opposed to the people today that do MMA, who seem to have a lot more respect for the classical styles, because a lot of their skill base is derived from a lot of those core styles, but they actually have cross-trained enough to see what's good and what isn't, what works for them. And that gives you a broader perspective, and you can kind of see what works and what doesn't. But these guys are actually doing real fighting. And weirdly enough, that actually like breeds respect in people. As much as you have those that are going to be, you know, the showboaters and all that, a lot of them are just actually respectful and not what you saw in the karate dudes. And I thought they were the most contentious community out there until I met the Bigfoot community. They are, and this one makes even less sense, because you're talking about people effectively, at least as mainstream America sees, or mainstream worldview sees, you're chasing the fucking Easter Bunny to them. And You have the Matthew Johnsons who have the one way to do this, and he's not the only one. And this is a lot more often than not without allowing for grifters. Not that Matthew Johnson is not a grifter, but he's also genuinely insane in my opinion, which makes him a slightly different animal. But he and others like him are the bearers of the hidden knowledge, that one thing only they know. And of course it's bullshit. You are absolutely freaking naive to think, I'll use that kind word, to think that you are tapping into some secret knowledge by listening to this idiot or any of the others. And some of the others, there was a guy that came onto my groups on Facebook, and he was trying to do a post where, if you want to track Bigfoot in the snow, I know the one, that's a grifter. That dude's, that kind of thing, that approach anyway, is that of a grifter. And if you want to throw your money at that, he's probably going to take you on a tour for way too much money, and you're not going to find anything more than maybe a little titillation for a $3 word for the morning or anything else. But normally I wouldn't mind going up that whole thing there, but where carrying the camera, it's just going to be a pain in the ass. And today I'm already like limited in resources, so I can't really film that kind of thing. I need to charge things and regroup, but I also need, if the other camera's dead, I probably need to replace that with something more fitting. And the fun with that is that it opens the door to the fact that your gimbal camera thing, which I kind of came to like, the H1 has been discontinued last I knew, and the little Osmo level things that there's like that one, which you need an app. It's a scam as far as I'm concerned. So fuck you, DJI. But also the FIMI. I had one of those, and the thing lasted I took it out outdoors, but not in any kind of conditions that were so heinous to its freaking treatment that it should only have died after 2 months, which it did. So I need to find something a little bit more robust that's going to last. I mean, the camera that I'm talking about that died, I actually looked back and I'm like, okay, I actually did have this thing for at least 5 years. And it may not be dead, but I have to take it home and fart with it to see. Maybe it's just the freaking, the SD card could have gone bad too. That never happens, but could be. But these are not things you're going to solve in the field, so. And yes, unfortunately, SD cards do go bad. It is what it is. Which, on a completely unrelated cyberdeck related, non-related note, is the one you need to jerry-rig a hard drive and then set the boot order to that in order to have that be a more long-term solution for one of those. Unless you want to reimage the thing and have a steady supply of SD cards. They do have SSD cards that you can boot from, but how you connect that to certain things or what you're using dictates your hardware usage. I'm kind of all over the place today, but then again, I've been thrown off my game when that tends to happen. So, anyway, grifters, nut jobs, contention. That was my point somewhere, and I'm going to take another segment break because I feel like I'm ranting again, and my phone is a decent battery level, but I'm really off my game today, and you're kind of catching not quite a blooper reel, but I was walking in the woods and started the other camera, and it just isn't doing what I would think. So I'm hoping it's a dead SD card. If it's not, I'm camera shopping, but I'll have to determine that in a place that's not in the field. So I'm going to take a break and kind of like not be groping around at the terrain because I seem to be doing that. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, we're back, and this is about where we're going to end this one. Again, limited camera ability today, and rather than use up all the battery life on the camera and all that, I kind of like had an off day today. It happens. But like, subscribe. We'll catch up next time. We'll be in Vermont. We'll have things all charged at that point, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.